I'm here with my buddy Daylan Flowers. It's his first appearance on the show. We're going to start making this a regular thing. But Daylan, how are you, bro? What's new?
Doing good, man. So very enthusiastic. Just being here with you and trying to come on a little bit with the Rebel Walk and what you guys are doing here. So I appreciate you so much, my friend, for having me on. I'm doing good. Enjoying this time of football and basketball is also starting to merge in with this time now. And I know here in Oxford we just had an exhibition for the baseball team about a week ago. So everything's tying in really good for me. This is my one of my favorite times of the year, just because all my sports are still got the World Series going and everything. So like I can't complain right now. Trying to be as good as a college student can be. But I'm just happy to be here and grace the screen with you and get into some Ole Miss football.
Let's do it, bro. All right, let's get into it. We're going to dive into the Ole Miss versus Oklahoma game. Ole Miss won 26-14. Outscored Oklahoma 16-0 in the second half. It looked like two completely different teams. Daylan, just your thoughts on the game. What'd you see, and what are your takeaways?
A game that I think myself and a lot of people coming out of the bye week, we were questioning the healthiness of a lot of our players on both sides of the ball, and as well, what was the offense going to showcase? Obviously that's been one of the biggest question marks this year from the offensive side of standpoint. Why have we not gotten a lot of guys involved? And that's in terms of Caden Prescorn, obviously, Daquan Wright, and I think the big name Ulysses Bentley. And so those are some of the things going into this Oklahoma game that I think myself and a lot of people were asking questions about. That first half, if you notice a trend throughout the season so far, man, the first drive for our offense is always that drive that I feel like we just go out and gun for points. And that's great. I think and I don't know this off the top of my head, but I feel like maybe the LSU game was the only game, the first drive, we didn't put up 7 points.
I think that's correct.
Okay. And so it was great to come out there on that first drive, put up points. Immediately we see Caden Prescorn involved. On the third play, we see Daquan Wright involved. And for me, that really just is like, thank you. I don't know why it took the 8th game of the season to see this, but it was just great to see because immediately we saw things that we haven't seen from the offense since really the Wake Forest game, I would say. And that's just the involvement of Caden Prescorn. I remember when Caden first got healthy last year. And he came in that Alabama game, the first play of the game, we drop back and give it to him right down the middle field, and he just goes up and gets us a first down. I saw that again this game, and it brings a bit of comfort to me because not only have we obviously missed his presence, but his impact is so huge on this offense, and I really don't think people understand how big it is. The amount of people it takes to bring down Caden Prescorn when he's running full-fledged towards you, it's a lot. And we use that middle of the field properly on that first drive, and we score because we got Caden Prescorn involved, and he just diverts so much. It can open up our run game a little bit. It can open up so many different pass variations for us. And seeing Daquan Wright involved as well. I know later on in the game he missed a catch that we probably could have gotten in our end zone and going up and gotten that first down. But just to see our two tight ends involved was really key for me, and getting them involved really early. That was a big thing for me. And, talking about the first half and coming down the second half, like you said, scoring 16-0 in the second half, that's big for me. I think on both sides of the ball, we've seen this a little bit more positively from the defense all year, but adjustments is everything. And we've kind of questioned why isn't the offense adjusting to what opposition defenses are giving us. But all year we've seen the defense kind of adjust in game, doing that a lot. The defense struggled in the first half. And I think that's a really big test to, I would say, Jackson Arnold is an athlete. I saw Jackson Arnold really use his legs a lot in the first half, especially when plays didn't go the way OU wanted them. I saw them come out a lot of 5-out formations, even in a lot of slot X receiver formations, and it didn't work out for them. And Jackson Arnold, sometimes had enough time by his offensive line protecting, sometimes didn't. And he made some plays happen with his legs and got a lot of first downs for OU. And our defense really didn't have an answer for that. And I saw that happen just a few times against Kentucky with Brock Vandagriff. Two guys that aren't really true athletes and known to be runners, but they did what they had to do to put their teams in successful positions. And I saw Jackson Arnold do that a lot. And Pete Golding and Zach Arnett and the entire defensive staff. I don't know what they didn't have time, but they had the players, I'm sure, get together, understand what was happening. And I think Pete did a really good job of truly sitting back and saying, okay, maybe I need to put a linebacker here. Maybe I need to bring this safety up. And it completely shut them out the second half. And that's something that, I've given props to Pete Golding all year and all summer long. These guys have completely bought in. We got so many new transfers on that side of the ball, and it's never going to be easy for a coach, especially in the era of, NIL and, players may be fighting for more things than one in that situation. But I've truly watched this group buy into what Pete Golding is doing and what his staff is doing. And for me, that it just goes to a true shout out to Pete Golding on how great of a coach he is, how great of a man he is, and how great of a leader he is on and off the field, because they're playing for that guy like their lives depend on it. And I've seen it every single game. And for them to do that, that just tells me they have a good belief. They have a great relationship with Pete Golding and what his staff is doing behind closed doors. And even in the midst of the games, he's doing a really good job. So I give huge props to what they did coming out of the second half, understanding what went wrong in the first half, and how we could eventually do that better. I think we stopped their run game pretty effectively, and our secondary really showed up, and I think that's something big too. I think that's maybe it has been the only question mark from what we've seen from the defense this year is a little bit of our secondary and our play action defense from our cornerbacks has been a little down. But other than that, I think most people would say the defense has been really the key and best part of this team so far, which I would agree with. But I thought the pass secondary did really well. From a Brent Venables perspective, you could say we really didn't know what was going to happen with this Oklahoma offense this year with this game. And that may be a really big thing of why we kind of saw them diverge really well in the first half. They just fired their offensive coordinator this past week. So, myself, fans, and obviously the coaches, they were in for a surprise. They really didn't know what they were going to get from Jackson Arnold and company until the game actually started Saturday. So that was a really big props to them. And the offense, like I talked about, they got things going early. And I can get into a little bit more of that as well. I don't want to go too long right here.
No, you're good, Day. I mean, you nailed it. I mean, that second half, you come out and you're at that make or break point again that we seem to hit, quite a few times in the season. If OU goes down and scores a touchdown, game's probably over right then and there, right? You're going to see some guys start quitting. It's just the vibes were terrible, like just terrible in the stadium. But that doesn't happen. You come and get it's either a 3 and out or it was really just a short drive for Oklahoma, and then you come down and you score. And just that utilization of Caden Prieskorn and Daquan Wright, it was crucial. If you look at all those drives where Ole Miss was able to get in scoring position and score touchdowns, the ball was getting in the hands of those players. And I know Trey Harris being out is terrible. He's probably the best receiver in the country. But I think it really opened the eyes of Lane Kiffin and hopefully Charlie Weiss Jr. to be like, wow, we need to get these guys involved because it's quite literally carrying our offense. Yes. And I think if you utilize Daquan Wright and Caden Prieskorn against LSU, it's a completely different game. They were seemingly always in the flats. And Dart had a check down, right? Dart, it feels like he's never had that. He's constantly scrambling for his life, looking to just chuck it down the field or take a sack. And that didn't happen. He was checking the ball down. Short yards lead to long drives, and that's what happened. Yeah. And it was awesome. And I'm hoping we see something similar in Arkansas, whether Trey's playing or not. But that defense, man, the defensive line turned it up to 100 in the second half. I think they finished the game with like 10 sacks. And Suntarian Perkins, who only weighs 215 pounds, playing like a monster day. I mean, he's all over the field. Put him at edge, put him at linebacker. Duke could probably play safety if you needed him to. He's doing everything, and he never shuts off the motor. I think he's an incredible part of this Ole Miss defense, and credit to Pete Golding for keeping him here in Mississippi and hopefully, developing him into a first-round draft pick, which I think he has the potential to do. Looking at the offensive line, Daylan, they allowed 1 sack, but there was a play where Dart kind of put himself into trouble. We saw Jaquan Scott playing, I believe, right guard, and Julius Bulow playing right tackle. Lane Kiffin said Micah Pettis was going to play, it sounded like, but the day of the game or the night before the game, he basically said that he couldn't. It was a new updated offensive line, and they didn't give up a sack. Now, the run blocking I thought was pretty terrible. It didn't seem like Bentley or Parrish were able to find any sort of positive yardage throughout the whole day. But I just wanted to get your thoughts on the line and where you think it goes in the future with maybe the return of Micah Pettis or any other player you can think of, Daylan.
That's a great question, man. And going off a lot of different standpoints there, it's definitely been a difficult season for the offensive line. We've obviously been beat up all season long. And one key point that I want to attest to is we got a lot of transfers on that offensive line, and this is me taking no discredit from those guys. But I think that really shows you don't know what you're going to get until you get into the field.
Yeah.
And when you get on the field, you can come from any conference you want. And I will wholeheartedly stand by this. The SEC is a different type of football, especially on those lines of scrimmage.
Right.
So you get a lot of guys in the transfer portal, and they've stepped up and given us a lot of depth. But I still think it's going to continue to take a little bit more time for them all to gym together, especially we'll be dealing with so many injuries. Like we've talked about this obviously off camera. I miss Jaden Williams like heck. For people that don't know, I'm from Arkansas, so I saw him. He's from Conway, Arkansas. I saw him a lot in high school. I watched a lot of film of him. I have a great relationship with the head coach up there at Conway. I watched Jaden Williams a lot, and when he got recruited, he's the same year as me. I was so happy to see him be here. He started a lot his freshman year.
Yeah.
And I really think his presence is being missed, just the experience of the conference, his attitude, his leadership, his ability. He has great feet work for a guy his size. I really think his presence and experience is being missed right now. I think Jeremy James is obviously being missed as well too. Is a leader on that offensive line as well. We've been beat up, and I think that attests to a lot of different things as well. I want to say this. I don't think a lot of the play calling this year has also been fair on what our offensive line has to do. And when I say that, you just kind of said it, you see a lot of the play calls. I thought we did a little bit of a better job against OU but in most of the conference games so far, we see us trying to read downfield a lot and trying to make a lot of deep balls happen. And when you have not only an offensive line that is depleted, but an offensive line that is honestly still trying to gel together for the first time, because look, if you think about it, LSU has only been our true road test. I know we went to Wake Forest, but that's not really a true road environment. LSU has really been our true road test. So the LSU game, that was the big test for the offensive line. And that was a lot of the guys' first experiences in an atmosphere like that at a night game on the road against a ranked team. That played a big part into it. But as well, going back to my point, the play calls, they didn't really give them much opportunities for the offensive line to even have time to make some great blocks. When you have an offensive line that's depleted in an environment like that, a lot of guys, especially for the first time, you essentially, in my opinion, I don't know football more than some of these coaches, but you want to get your receivers some short passes, dump off your running back to a few short passes, and just get the offense flowing a little bit to gain momentum and confidence. But every time you try to chuck the ball downfield, the offensive line is getting beat up, as we saw against LSU. That's not giving them any confidence. They're having to hold their blocks a lot longer than they should be, instead of us mixing in a lot of our play calls. And it just simply didn't happen against LSU. And I think that's, a frustrating part on so many different reasons. But as well, I think that's playing a big part in our running game. I'm seeing a lot of the same play calls and play formations for our run game that we saw last year when we had Quinshon Judkins. And I think there are going to be adjustments that need to be made if we want to see success on that run game. We're running right into the A gaps a lot of the times. And, don't get me wrong, I love Henry Parrish and I love Ulysses Bentley. They are very elusive guys that can break tackles really well, have great speed. But we have to also play to our guys' strength. And sometimes running an HB toss to the left or right, or, getting them a quick screen pass, those may be more beneficial, especially against defensive lines like LSU, like Kentucky, like Arkansas has, like Florida, like Georgia. getting them different type of scenarios is definitely going to be important than continuing to do what we've been doing all season and seeing no success. I would love to see how, the offense, John Garrison and Charlie Wise and Lane Kiffin kind of consume what they've seen so far this season and try to evaluate the run game a little bit differently. Because as well, we forget that the running backs are also very, very crucial parts in pass blocking. And I haven't seen us set our running backs up to be great pass blockers really well the entire season. So that's a huge point I want to say. And one thing about the offense that I really, really would like to see us do better at, and this is something that I talked about on Locked On Ole Miss with Stephen Willis at the start of the season, and especially even going to the LSU game, he asked me what did I think was going to be the key in us winning, and I said the red zone offense. And you can attest to this more than anybody. And I thought we did a much better job against Oklahoma. That's something that I was proud of.
Yeah.
Caden Prescorn getting down there, running the ball with Henry Parrish on the first drive, seeing Jordan Watkins have an unbelievable route that was almost a touchdown. But us getting in the red zone, it's scoring, whether that's a field goal or a touchdown. That's something that this offense has struggled with really, really bad this year. We talked about this a couple weeks ago, but the LSU game, we got the ball on like our 13 alpha interception from our defense, and then we proceed to run the ball 4 times on every down, and we don't get any points at all. And that right there, whether we kick the field goal or we don't try to quick hike that play and we get JJ in like we usually do, see that play right there, that scenario more than likely can win us the game against LSU.
Oh yeah.
So I really want to see an improved red zone offense from this team. I was proud of the way we kind of correlated without Trey Harris. I really want to shout out Caden Lee. He has absolutely stepped his game up tremendously this year. Just open field catching, getting up the field. His routes have been great. His pass blocking up the field has been pretty good as well. I've watched him just grow tremendously in every aspect of being a wide receiver. And his growth is something that I would be wrong to not just bring up really quick. But I really want our red zone offense to improve, whether that's getting Juice Wells more involved in earlier downs and in different positions on the field. So then we can have a better chance of getting him involved in the red zone. I think he could be a big key, especially now that we don't, we're kind of iffy to know if Trey's going to be back against Arkansas or when he's going to be back. I would love to see some design plays for Juice and Caden Lee as well in those areas to hopefully give us a little bit more strength, because right now it's not going well for us in the red zone. And I think if we had better opportunities there, because look, it's hard to score in when you're inside that 20-yard line, you're in a shorter distance, the defense has less to work with, so now they're focused on a more square box. And that's completely understandable. But sometimes it's not even that, it's the play calls that I'm seeing from those moments there that I think really need to be brought up within practices and within film works. And that's something that I really think can be a huge piece for us going against Arkansas. How can we look to take the offense out? How can we look to take the crowd out early? And when we get in those positions, we have to get some points on the board. That's whether it's a field goal or 7 points. And we did a great job against Carolina taking the crowd out early, and that's because we did really good when we got down to the end zone, whether that was passing, running, Jackson Dart trying to use his legs. So that's a big thing for me for this upcoming weekend and going forward as well. When we get to the red zone, how can we effectively put some type of points up and take opposing crowds out of the game?
Yeah, and if you don't, Daylan, it's very simple. You're going to end up with a result like LSU, where you probably end up losing the game, especially on the road at Arkansas. And all you can do is look back at these missed opportunities over and over and over. And it's haunting for the fans, and I'm sure the players and the coaches. You mentioned Juice Wells. When you look at that 2022 season, he's an all SEC player. He got hurt in 2023. A lot of those yards are coming from the production of Juice himself. Yes. He's not a guy who you can use like Trey Harris, just go run down the field and make this crazy catch. So we have to do a better job, especially with Trey's injury, whether he's playing or not, of getting Juice the ball in open space. We saw it against Oklahoma. I think he caught basically one of the screen passes that Trey usually catches. And he stiff arms a dude straight into the ground. He's a massive guy, and you have to use that to your strengths, especially when it probably isn't their number one cornerback guarding him. get him the ball, create some space for Juice Wells. I think that's the next step this offense can take in addition to keeping those tight ends involved. But going into Arkansas, the run game has to be effective.
Yeah.
It has to be. And if it's not, it's going to cause a lot of problems. It's going to force you to pass the ball nearly every time, which sure that worked last week, but it's a different environment. And it's a much different Arkansas team. It's a team who's coming off, I think it's like a 30-plus point win. They're feeling themselves, and they beat Tennessee at home earlier in the year. So I don't want to take this lightly. And when you're on the road, you have to establish the run game. Like Daylan said, whether it's getting the ball outside, you got to create space for Parrish and Bentley because Daylan nailed it. This isn't Judkins who you can run through the A and B gaps and just watch him plow over linebackers. Like, that's not the type of players we're working with. These are more finesse, more speed, more shifty type guys who work better on the outsides. And even in the screen game, Bentley did it a ton last year, but something's got to do for that. You're probably going to receive the ball. Ole Miss always receives the ball. So I'd like to see them get that and go down and score on that first drive. I am remembering they actually didn't score on the first drive against South Carolina too, and they failed to do it against LSU. So they failed to do it twice on the road. I'd love to see him change that, come out and really set the tone in Fayetteville. But other than that, Daylan, that's really all I have. If there's anything more you wanted to add, anything more you're looking forward to, please feel free, brother.
Yeah, I mean, like you just said, I think getting the offense going quickly on that first drive is going to be huge. Travis Williams, plays a really good, just physical defense, and his guys have bought into what he's doing really well. So that's going to be huge. One thing I would say from the Oklahoma game, our special teams did really good. I thought Fraser Mason stepped up tremendously.
How about it, man?
Had a great punt. And put the defense in a very good field position. And I think Kane Davis is getting his groove going a little bit better as well. I thought our special teams was really, really good. And so that's a big shout out. And that's something else that I think, obviously the third part of the game that's not really talked about, but I think can be very beneficial for us going forward. So that's something that I noticed really well. That's really been improved since the last couple of weeks. So shout out to the special teams. And the defense is something that I also really quick want to say as well. I think, we're a lot of guys are playing through a lot of injuries, and that's something that I want to talk about on that defensive line that we saw a lot of guys continue to go, and how great was it to see Princely Umanuelen back out there, and just he was missed against LSU, and just his quickness, his elusiveness, his understanding of the game is you can't really describe it, but to see him out there and to see how he gets up in the backfield, it's just really fun. So I can't wait to see what he does against Arkansas. And that's something that I want to say really quick before, I kind of wrap up. I really want the defensive line. We get into the backfield a lot, and sometimes we miss out on a lot of sacks.
Yes.
And Taylon Green is a guy that's going to move around. When we get in that backfield, I want our defensive line to finish those plays and get those sacks. That's something that is really going to be beneficial for us, and it's going to be a momentum setter as well. I would love for us, and don't get me wrong, we've been great on the defensive line. Our sack numbers are up in every aspect. We have been tremendously better, which is, of course, bringing in guys like Princely and Walter Nolan. That was going to happen. But I think we can be even better. And I think that's something that, Jared Ivey's done really well in getting in the backfield. We have a great group of guys on that line. And there are a few times that we don't finish the sacks that I really would like us to. And so that's something that I want people to kind of go back maybe at other games and watch that and kind of expect more against the Arkansas Razorbacks. But other than that, man, I don't want to go on too long, but it's a fun weekend against Oklahoma. Great to get back in the win column, and hopefully we can use that momentum and continue using it throughout the rest of the season.
Yeah, Dylan. And the final thing I just want to touch on is you saw the difference in the defense when Ole Miss finished on those sacks and when they didn't. That was how Jackson Arnold picked up his second touchdown of that game. Princely had him by like the string of his shirt. Arnold escaped it and threw a touchdown. And then you look at the LSU game in the fourth quarter, Sunterian Perkins is probably a centimeter away from fully getting to Garrett Nussmeier, and he converts and they go score and win the game. So with a guy like Green of Arkansas who can scramble and make plays, he's a very, very well-versed playmaker, you
Mhm.
have to finish sacks. And I think we can do that. We've proven to do so. It just has to be a little more consistent. But just letting you guys know, we'll go into a much deeper preview and prediction podcast against Arkansas. Really looking forward to the game. You got injury reports, more press conferences tomorrow. We'll definitely shoot you guys with that news. But other than that, do you have anything else, Daylan?
No, I'm good, man. Hotty toddy, y'all. Make sure y'all represent pretty well in Fayetteville this weekend. It's going to be a fun one.
Hell yeah, it's going to be a good one. Make sure to tune into the rebelwalk.com for all your Ole Miss sports needs. Hotty toddy, and thank you guys for listening.